You're listening to Heating Up the UK,
a Miami Heat UK-based podcast,
bringing you the best Heat media guests every single week.
Here's your host, Dan Healy.
Brought to you by the Miami Heat UK social media network.
Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Heating Up the UK, a Miami Heat UK-based podcast. I am your host, Dan Healy, and before we come to today's episode, I just want to ask everybody once again to please check out the YouTube channel. That's Miami Heat UK TV. Starting that from scratch, so we're making a brand new start with that. New content coming out almost daily now with that. We're going to have 3 new shows, as I keep repeating. The Heat Hub episode 1 has already gone up. Thank you for everybody that has checked that out. The second episode will be out before the end of the new year. And we've got our collab with the Heat Film Room Twitter account. They are putting the finishing touches to their first episode on that. So that will be dropping any time now. So stay tuned. And then we've got the Tepid Take show also coming out. First episode of that will be dropping in the new year. And that will be 6-episode series where we will debate whether our takes are hot, tepid or stone cold. So that'll be good fun as well. Every single podcast episode will be loaded onto there as well, and some other fun and games. We might even dip into doing some live streams from time to time as the season goes on. So please check out the YouTube channel. That is Miami Heat UK TV. On to today's episode, and it is a historic day for Heating Up the UK. We will still be doing our weekly US guest every single week. That will not stop, but we are doubling our content now. We're hoping to make this another weekly episode, which is myself and 3 other UK diehard Miami Heat fans. They are now joining me today. I have got Lee Whittington, Darren Carter and Sam Aquara joining me. Sam, you are not a stranger to the pod. You've done a couple of episodes with me. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about you?
Yes, very good. Very well, thank you. Great to have you back on the show. And Darren, likewise, you've joined me for a couple of episodes previously before. It's great to have you back. How's things your end, mate?
Yep, all good. Thank you, mate.
Good, good. And we have a newbie, Lee Whittington. Great to have you on, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, great to be on. It's this is definitely going to be different. Done a few pods in the past for the Dolphins, but yeah, this be interesting to be the new boy.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Don't worry. And we know you're a big Dolphins fan, so things are looking good for the Dolphins as well. So Miami sports are in a good place right now. So this is excellent. So first of all, let's just, before we go on to any content, a very quick how you got into following the Heat. Sam, we'll start with you, mate. How did you start following Miami basketball?
It was roughly about like 2005. So I started playing basketball a lot in school. So I just wanted to like watch it and stuff. So ESPN was the only channel covering it. And I just tuned into that. And that was around the same time that Shaq got traded. And yeah, I think that just literally just got me into it. Just seeing Miami Heat all over the news because obviously Shaq was I think 2 seasons prior to that he was MVP.
Wow.
So yeah, it was all over the news. And yeah, at that point, I'd say I was a bandwagon fan. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, mate. Nothing wrong with that. That's, the Shaq attack getting you into it, that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how it started. I didn't really actually start watching games like live until about 2010-ish. That's when I was like in 6th form and I could actually stay up late.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a while.
Cool. No, well, great to have you as part of this pod, mate. So thanks for jumping on. Darren, we've spoken a couple of times before. Your fandom goes back quite a long way with the Heat, yeah?
Yeah, again, like Sam, I started playing a little bit in school. But we've mentioned this before, the coverage of the NBA over here in the UK wasn't fantastic at that time. And it was only when I went to New York in 2003, which was a pretty historic draft. I was there for the draft. And yeah, obviously LeBron, Carmelo were the top dogs, Chris Bosh. And for some reason, I just took a liking to Dwayne Wade. I listened to his interview. I seen him obviously when he went up and got drafted at 5. And just all the talk around him, it was kind of like he was the underdog of that draft. It was all about LeBron and Carmelo, obviously. And I started following him. So I jumped on the Wade hype. And I'm so glad I did, because then it led to, obviously, as Sam said, Shaq came a few years later and then the championship in 2006. So it was a pretty good start to my Heat journey, let's say. So yeah, it was all because of D Wade.
There you go. Yeah, just the GOAT in so many ways is D Wade. And Lee, you're a big Dolphins fan, as we just said, but how long have you been following the Heat, mate?
So yeah, I saw my first Dolphins game in 2005, and always wanted to go and see a basketball game, kind of no matter where. Originally, it was going to be in Orlando, so the kind of natural thing was to try and kind of follow the Magic. But after my flights got changed, I ended up in Miami. And that was kind of the end of it. I mean, I went to my first Heat game in 2009. Dwayne Wade hit a buzzer beater in overtime against the New Jersey Nets, and that was it. Hooked ever since. So,
wow, that's fantastic. So it's basically a rechartered, rescheduled flight that ended you up as a Miami Heat fan.
Yeah, basically. That started my obsession with all things Miami.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. And so we've got three guys here that have all been supporting the Heat for well over a decade, and yet here's your host who's only been following the sport in general, let alone the Heat, for about 4 years now. This is actually only my 5th season, so I'm the newbie in this sense. So, what a season we've just had, guys, and what a season we're about to embark on. It all starts tonight as we record this for the opening games tonight. Heat start off tomorrow night. A tough game against the Magic, which we'll come on to in a minute. But before we come on to anything sort of schedule related, season expectations related, etc., we've got to address the main breaking news, which again was last night's sort of bomb, if you like, that the Miami Heat are now stopping, so we hear, with their pursuit of James Harden. So first of all, Darren, I'll ask you first. Do you believe this? Because we've said this before, that we're no longer engaged in chats with people. I think we even said it last season, in fact, when we acquired Jimmy Butler. I think we've said it before when we was going to go with Shaq, I think. You'd be able to tell me better than that. But do you think that this is all over? Or do you think this is literally just we've put our offer on the table and that's as far as we're going, and come back and see us if you change your mind?
Yeah, I think you're dead right. I think there's probably an offer being put to James Harden, and knowing how Pat Riley operates, Mickey Harrison, I think, they're not going to stand around and wait for anybody, be it a superstar or whatever. They'll make their pitch, they'll make their offer. So I'm pretty sure, you can never say someone of, James Harden's caliber, a future Hall of Famer, that you're ever going to be out of the question or out of the running. But yeah, just knowing how they operate, I'm sure there's something on the table, and that's going to be whether Harden fancies it or not. But just to add, for me, I wasn't massively struck, and that probably comes as a surprise to people. Knowing obviously James Harden, he's a phenomenal scorer. We know he's a phenomenal player, but is he right for us? Is he right for the Heat culture? And a lot of people we all know about his off the court antics. Would he buy in to the Heat culture? Because I think if he was going to sort of look at his characteristics, there's not many boxes he ticks really, other than being a fantastic scorer, the superstar. But is he going to be the grinder? Have the work ethic of a Jimmy Butler, a Bam? We've got our all stars. In my opinion, we've got superstars. And just to finish, what would we have to give up for him?
Yeah. I mean, this has been obviously the main thing why Heat Twitter has been in civil war over the last couple of weeks or so, where half the fan base are saying, look, you get him. How often does a top, one of the best shooters to ever play the game, a top 5, 6, 7 player, wherever you want to rank him, how often does that become available? And if we've got the opportunity to talk about that, you do so. But then obviously the other people are putting across the point exactly like you did there. Whereas, with the culture fit and obviously his ISO style, etc. Sam, what do you think? First of all, in a yes or no, before I ask you anything else, would you want James Harden on your team?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. So in which case, do you give up what's probably going to be half the farm for him? So they would be looking at an offer of pretty much everything, barring Bam and Jimmy. So Tyler, D. Robertson, obviously the money pieces, KZ Okpala, Precious Achiuwa. Are we giving up all that for James Harden? Would you still do that?
I think for me, where I draw the line, and pretty much most Heat fans, is what we have to give off. I could live with giving off Duncan Robinson, to an extent Tyler as well. But when we start pulling away our depth, then we've got an issue. He will bring a lot to the Heat. I mean, at the end of last season, the Heat were dead last in field goal attempts. Granted, we got to the free throw line quite a lot. What Harden does is he's extremely good at ISO, and what he could do on the Heat, he could increase our field goal attempts. So that's one thing that could be, well, it will be really good to have him on Heat for that. And we got to have a look at where we come from in the last season. So at the very minimum, every single one of us want us to improve. And we got to the final. So improving means winning the championship. And then not many pieces that can put us above that limit right now. And when you think of the competition, we've got Kevin Durant, who's just come off injury. I'm still not so on the Celtics yet, but they could always be an upset. But it'll be really nice to have Harden, but we just don't have to give away too much because that just defeats the purpose.
Yeah, no, again, that's a fair point. So, Lee, what Sam just said there is the improvement will be to win a title. We've got to the finals. We fell 2 games short. So to improve that, now I put this out on Twitter the other day, and I'd be interested to get your take on it. I said that if you get James Harden to accompany Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, plus whatever scraps are left, does that still beat LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Lakers team in the next 2 to 3 years? Because that's really going to be your window of opportunity before players like Jimmy Butler and James Harden start to go past their peak. So do you think that if we were to acquire him and obviously lose a lot of depth, does that beat the Lakers, who, in my opinion, have improved on last year's roster?
Yeah, I think you can, because I think it changes the way you build the team. I think once you cement, whether you want to call him a second or third star on the roster, I think it changes your ability to pitch to other players. I think it changes the amount you have to pay in free agency. It changes the amount you have to give up. You know, you become a more desirable destination. So yeah, I think you definitely can. I think you might suffer a little bit in the short term. You know, you might see the first half of the season, players coming in and out, you know, real changes in the lineup because you're trying to accommodate a new player almost at short notice. And I think that's what you see what's going on right now, where the Heat say, look, this is our offer, I'll take it or leave it, because we're moving on. We've got stuff to do. Yeah. And I think we saw it with Jimmy Butler. They really wanted Jimmy, you know, from Minnesota. I remember being in Miami at the time, and everyone's convinced they 100% want him. But at the same time, they're going to do it on their own terms. You know, they're not going to be dictated to. And you know, I'm all for that. If Pat Riley's willing to walk away from a deal, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that is obviously I think one of the things that are getting repeated a lot on Twitter is that you've got to just trust in your front office. You look at that deal with Butler last year, you think of what that was first being touted as, when it was originally going to be Dallas that was going to be the team that was going to accompany us in that trade. And I think we was going to be looking at giving up Goran Dragic, Derek Jones Jr., I think Kelly Olynyk and Josh Richardson were all part of that trade offer. And in the end, we got rid of Josh Richardson, Hassan Whiteside, and obviously I think Mo Harkless was in and then straight back out again as part of a 4-team trade. So when you look at that patience and what you end up getting the better deal. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Darren, you touched on it on the Harden bit there about his style and his culture fit. Now, do you think that, yes, we all know that he likes to party, let's put it nicely. He likes to be up late. He likes to go to certain destinations. So do you think that is something that he does because he was allowed to get away with whatever he wanted in Houston, and therefore, if he did come, whether that would be, he would be told, look, we don't do that here. This is the path, this is the culture, you put that behind you, and if you can't do that, we're not going to go any further with these conversations. So do you think that if he was to come, that Pat would be saying that, or do you think it would be just left to be like, well, let him do what he wants because look what he can produce. He may be going out to the clubs, etc., but then he'll still come in and drop 40 points on you.
I'm more inclined to go with the first theory of Pat, and I mean people like Jimmy Butler, Spo. I don't see them allowing that, the party life. And let's be honest, Miami is probably one of the best party scenes you could have over in the States. But I think, I listened to what Udonis said this week. It was quite interesting. He was talking about Bam, he was talking about Jimmy Butler, and talking about the culture. And he said, it was interesting how he said it. He said, these guys don't have to try to fit in. It's just natural. They come in, they fit the culture. They don't have to do anything differently to what they are. I think James Harden would definitely have to do that. And, you're looking on recent history, LeBron came and pretty much sacrificed, listened to what Pat Riley had to say, trusted that he would get him a championship, which he ultimately did. You'd like to think James Harden would do the same, but I'm not so sure. I'm not sold. I think he's like you say, he's a phenomenal scorer, and would he ultimately sacrifice? That's never been his style. On the court, he is a maverick. So yeah, I'd be more inclined if we did get him. I think he'd be on tight restraints, and then the only question for me would be whether that would be too much for him.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that sort of countered when that argument was put forward about the culture fit, etc. That countered it with, well, Jimmy Butler was always a bit of a handful and so on, but not necessarily with party life, etc. But that reputation of sort of being able to do what he wants and so on, and everyone said that about Jimmy. But the difference is with Jimmy is he. And whether he would have that culture fit is he was Miami Heat culture. He is about winning, and Miami is about winning. So that always seemed like that was going to be a seamless fit. So I do get the concerns, and I would think that if he did come, which we don't know what's going to happen now, but if he did come, you would expect that leash should be put on him a bit more. So just quickly as we finish up on the Harden talk, Sam, there was a question put out on if you could keep one, and I would expect that if this trade did happen, you probably wouldn't be able to keep either. Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson would almost certainly both be included in this deal. I think the sticking point was reported that Duncan Robinson was the one they wanted to hold on to, which was obviously saying that inevitably we was going to lose Tyler Herro in this trade. If you had to keep one or the other, Tyler or Duncan, which one would you want to keep?
Definitely Duncan. I feel in terms of what Tyler brings to the table right now, we could get that from Harden at an extremely greater level. Given he's got that raw tenacity, and to be fair, he's still got a lot to go in terms of development, but we already know what Harden is. Tyler's got a huge ceiling, but like I said, he's proven himself in the last playoffs, but we don't know what his future holds. But
yeah, we
can definitely vouch for Harden.
Yeah. So Lee, same question to you. Would you keep hold of Duncan in that sense, or would you rather have Tyler?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You're taking proven talent over potential.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I think Tyler's got all the potential in the world, but Harden's guaranteed. You've seen it over X amount of years. So yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Okay. Right, okay, fair enough. So we will see what happens. I don't think that it's the end of this story in any way, shape or form. I think that they're doing what they're doing in negotiations. They're starting high. Rockets will be looking for the best package they can, quite rightly so. I just don't believe it's going to be anything near what they think it's going to be, especially with reports again coming out just a few hours ago that there was some trouble in practice and he's throwing balls at rookies and so on. This is a disgruntled star that wants out, and they will want out of that situation as soon as possible, Houston. So I don't think they're going to be getting the package that they think they're going to be getting. So Miami may very well come into play again. We shall see. Right, so let's move on. Season expectations now. An incredible season last year. Way above expectations, some will say. Some will say no, that they expected this all along. I believe it was over expectations. What are we thinking now, Darren? Are we? I think that, the expectations maybe last year, if people looked at their seedings, they would have put us against the Bucks and maybe said that's where the season ends. That's where a lot of people would have put, our season. I think now seeing what we did and how we went through, sweeping the Pacers, beating the Bucks in 5, beating the Celtics in 6, and then obviously falling short due to an injury-plagued finals, that the expectations now have changed. We've lost a couple of players. We've got in a couple of handy players. We've also got now a new rookie who looks good and precious. We've got KZ, which I'm delighted. I cannot wait to see some of KZ. He looks great already. I would throw him straight in, by the way, if I'm Spo. Give him the nod from the start. So things are looking very rosy. What do we think this year? Are we looking at trying to repeat what we did last year, or do we think that that was maybe a reach and expectations should be maybe lowered a bit? What do we think?
I think we definitely overachieved, but I wouldn't say we massively overachieved last year. I think when we talked at the start of the season, I think I always seen us getting past the first round of the playoffs and even to the conference finals. So to make the finals, I think was special from that group. And I still think retaining the majority of the core really excites me. And as you say, adding a couple of others, Avery Bradley, I think is a really good pickup.
Yeah, you liked Avery Bradley, didn't you? I remember when we spoke right at the beginning of the season, you said, I'd love a bit of Avery Bradley. And here we are a year later, we've got him.
That's it. Again, I think he's just a guy that fits how we operate. And so, yeah, I think for this season, the one thing you have to look at straight away is teams know about us, and we're not sort of the surprise package, or they won't underestimate us if they did. Obviously, I mentioned it earlier. The East is loaded now. You've got a fresh-looking KD, Kyrie. What a pairing that is. Giannis is certainly going to be well, psyched and driven this year to silence a few of his doubters. The Bucks are going to be strong, as we know. The Celtics again, I think they could be potentially. The Sixers, you can't doubt them. They've got the talent, they've got the power. The Raptors, don't count them out. I think many people did last year, didn't they? But they proved that they're worth a shout in the East. So putting all that into perspective, I still feel really good about it. I still feel really confident that we can attack the East. And I think I said it to you in the playoffs, the end of last season, that I think we're a team no one wants to play. I seriously think that when it comes to playing the Heat, teams know that it's not going to be a night off. It's not going to be an easy one. Every game we play, we're going to be in the basketball game. We're going to give everything. We've got players that grind it out night in, night out. So with all them factors considered, I think I see us being in the top 2, 3 of the conference.
Yeah, that's exactly. Sorry, go on, finish.
At least, yeah. So yeah. If 3 is the lowest I see us finishing. Yeah,
I said the same. I think that we may lack the absolute superstar power that some of the other teams around the league have, but I think that the depth of this team is something that is going to be really important, especially going into a season that's going to be COVID disrupted. I think that depth is going to be a real key factor for a lot of teams. So, Sam, do you think that when you look at last season, there was, I think a lot of the media had the Bucks and the Sixers as the sort of overwhelming 2 favourites, and then there was quite a gap before the rest of the field. Obviously, the Sixers, it just didn't happen. The fit just didn't work, and they had a very disappointing season for their standards. But this year, it seems like the first 6 especially, it's really, really close. And you could almost make a pitch for any one of those 6 teams coming out of the East. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. The gap's really closed between the start of last season and now. I think the beauty of it is just looking at this Heat team, they're not afraid to play anybody. So regardless of where we end up in the regular season, we'll be fine in the playoffs. It's just how we get to that chip from the first round of the playoffs, I guess. Instead of first 3, I actually have the Heat in the first 4, so I'd say about 4th. Okay. I think we finished 5th last season, and I predicted 4th last season as well. So anywhere between 1st and 4th, I'll be happy. But it's the playoffs that really matters, in my opinion. Absolutely. And I think on a pod we did a while back, I said that if the Heat play a competitive second round series, then I'll be happy. It's a tough one because obviously we've been spoiled with the last season. I would love to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and if we can have a competitive series then I'll be pleased. But it will be a tougher season because obviously the competition's increased. And just thinking back to that 30-11 team, usually I'm one of those people to be like, oh yeah, let's stick with continuity. But if everyone else is getting better, then we really should be doing something. Like I've got full faith in Pat Riley, and if he thinks his team is good enough, then yeah, let's go with it. but I still feel like between now and the playoffs, there will be some moves being made. So yeah, we just need to keep an eye out.
Yeah, I agree. So you've got the Heat around the 4th spot then. Lee, do you think with the acquisitions, obviously losing Jay Crowder and Derek Jones is a bit of a blow. Jay Crowder especially, I think everyone would have wanted to have kept him. But as we've already just touched on there, a couple of good role players that will fit straight in seamlessly, really, I believe, with Avery Bradley and Mo Harkless. Avery Bradley especially, I think that's just a perfect Heat culture player. So do you think that we've got better, we've stayed the same, or do you think that we've actually slightly digressed?
I got to be honest. I think it's kind of almost on a par. Do you know what I mean? It's different, but with the same kind of overall amount of talent. I actually had us kind of finishing 4th. I think if you can get kind of home court in the first round, I'd consider that to be great. To be honest, exactly the same as what you just said. It's just make sure you're in. Because once you're in, everything changes, you know. And I think we saw that last year, where there's no team in the NBA with the culture and the coaching that the bubble suited more than the Heat, and I think that's why, you know, they kind of did overachieve.
Yeah.
You know, I think Eastern Conference Finals was a good expectation once they made the playoffs, but you know, to go all the way to the finals was great. And I think you saw some frustration from the Lakers as well in the finals, that with the injuries, it was harder than it should have been. And I think that's just the ultimate compliment to the way this team is built and the way they play.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point you brought up, and I'll follow up quickly with your lead. Do you think that one of the main reasons was that for the success we had was down to the bubble environment, because the Heat are very militant style. We came in prepared. We was one of the only teams that everyone was on board, wanted to be there for the right reasons, etc. And do you think that whereas a lot of people, there was some unrest, whether it be COVID or racial injustice issues, etc., there was not many teams that came in as focused. So do you believe that had it had been a normal season with normal stadia involved, etc., and home court advantages, etc., all that stuff, do you think that maybe it wouldn't have gone as far as that run?
Yeah, I got to be honest, I don't think it does go quite as far outside of the bubble. And, you know, as much as I'd love to say, yeah, of course it would, you know. I just think it was the perfect environment, especially for a team led by a player like Jimmy Butler. Do you know what I mean? He's going to thrive in that situation. Yeah. I think some empty stadiums this year as well kind of helps. I think during the playoffs, a couple of times there against like Boston, that's a horrible place to have to go if you're down in a playoff game. That crowd really gets into it. You know, I think it piles on some pressure that you didn't see in the bubble, and I think, you know, that really helped us overcome not shortcomings, but, you know, just kind of leveled the playing field somewhat.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So let's get some predictions then, Darren. So we won't go all the way down to 8. We'll just do our 1 to 4. I done this on the Heat Hub the other day with some of our favourite Heat media guests, and everybody had the Bucks at 1, and then it varied after that. So are you the same? Are you going Bucks 1? And if so, then who's your 2, 3, and 4, mate?
Yeah, I don't like to follow the crowd normally, but I think the Bucks are going to be strong. As I say, Giannis will be on a mission. Will definitely feel that they come way short where they should have done in the playoffs. So yeah, Bucks at 1. I'm inclined to go for us at 2. I really am. I just got a real good feeling about how we're going to be, how we'll approach it. And also, I think the start will make, you know, people have made a lot about us only having 2 weeks and having a short time to rest. So I think we'll come out of the blocks. And as I say, I think that factor of people not wanting to play us and knowing it's going to be a tough matchup. So us at 2, I'll probably look at the Nets at 3 and probably Philly at 4.
Okay, right. That's fine. Yeah, I think I was a bit in the minorities with the Nets because everybody else had them quite high, and I had them down at 5 only because I thought that there will be quite a lot of load management going on. I don't see them, Kyrie, KD being on the court as much as what a lot of people think they might do, especially together. I then also said that even though I could see them going as low as 5, that they could then quite comfortably come out the East. In fact, they might even be the favourites for me to come out the East. But there we go. So, Sam, what's your 1, 2, 3, 4, mate?
I've actually got Brooklyn first.
Wow.
I think KD is going to come back strong, and that paired with Kyrie, that's going to be a problem. So I got Brooklyn number 1. I got Milwaukee second. And that's where it gets a bit tricky because I'm tempted to go Philly 3rd, Miami 4th, Boston 5th. But I think it could literally be anywhere. You could go either way between 3 to 5. So, yeah.
Okay, Lee, round it up with you.
Yeah, so I mean, like the guys have just said, it's going to be super close. I got Milwaukee at 1. But I go after that. Oh, then I had Brooklyn, Philly, and then us at 4. I still think, though, that the last team Milwaukee want to see is going to be the Heat. I think last year, it wasn't necessarily because they're in the bubble that they beat Milwaukee. I just think it's a horrible matchup for Milwaukee. They beat, they had their number during the season. I think, it's so much more to it than just that, and it could be the same again. I think the way they build the Heat is, to beat particular teams in the East.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, for example, I had Bucks, then Heat, then Boston, then Raptors. I had as the top 4. So I had the Nets and Sixers at 5 and 6, whereas they arguably, I mean, all right, Nets by default because they've got an absolute worldie of a player coming back. But I think that the Nets and the Phillies, the Sixers, had arguably the best off seasons in the East. I think the Sixers have addressed all their problems, and yet I've got them down at 6 still. So new management, new coach, all of this. So it could be anybody's. It's going to be an incredibly exciting season, a very tight one. So yes, right on to our opening game then, and again it's the Orlando Magic. Darren. We seem to match up against these a lot opening games, and we don't really have the best record against them. They're always a bit of a bogey team. Should we be worried about the Magic to start the season?
I always find it, very difficult to predict when we play against the Magic. Like you say, it's always one of them sort of bogey sides that you expect to go there and win or get a W, and then you end up scratching your head after and thinking how we lost that matchup, but. Again, I go back to what I said, that I think we'll come out of the blocks. Again, clips from training camp, just the way that the players are talking. There is a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. I think they understand that there will be a target on their back, an expectation, and I think we'll attack the season. We'll go full blooded, and will the Magic be more rusty? I'd probably assume so in terms of basketball. And the fundamentals, we should be sharper. So on that basis, I think we'll start with a W.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, do you think that there'll be any elements of some players being rested as we start the season? Do we expect to see 30 odd minutes plus for Jimmy and Bam, or do we think they'll be managed a bit earlier considering the short rest time?
That's quite tricky. I feel there's going to be a showcase of some of the new talent that we haven't got much chance to see. So Precious, KZ, I don't think we'll get to see much of what's his name, Max Struss, but I would love to see a bit of that. But I think it'll be nothing far from the norm, nothing far from exceptional. We'll just see the usual minutes that Jimmy Butler gets. Same with Bam, just the usual, really. Yeah. I'm just interested in seeing how they ease KZ and the rookie back into the new line, into the roster.
Yeah, actually, a quick follow up on that for you. Do we see KZ being thrown straight in? Because I would love to see it.
Same, I'd love to see that. But I think they'll just find a good rotation for him, so just come off the bench and get a couple minutes and just see how he progresses. So it'll be very interesting to watch how he plays out this season, because the Heat is really good in developing talent, and they've definitely got a plan for him. So keep an eye on that.
Yep. Lee, who do you see starting the season at the points? Do you think it will be Tyler Herro? A lot of people seem to think this is the way forward. Do we see Kendrick Nunn come back in, who started the season so incredibly well? Or do we see the success of Goran Dragic and his bubble performances? Do we see him coming back into a starting role? What do you think is going to be the best way forward at the point guard?
Sorry, I just lost you there for a second.
So, can you still see us?
I missed the end of the question. I can see you.
So who do you think is going to start at the point guard, mate? Do we think it's going to be Tyler Herro, Do we see Kendrick Nunn keeping his spot like he did last year, or will Goran Dragic, after his impressive performances in the bubble, will he stay in that point guard position?
I think you see them try a few different things. I actually think they'll start the year almost treating the first few weeks, the first month, almost like the preseason, where you see a lot of changes in the lineup. I don't think what you see week one is game one is necessarily going to be it. I don't think you just, I don't think you can lock that in and say, all right, that's now the starting lineup. So, sorry, fellas.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I think it's, you're going to see a lot of lineup changes. You're going to see them really sort of trying to hone in on what what their favourite starting lineup is going to be.
Yeah.
So I just expect a lot of changes. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Dragic start the season at point, because I think they just want to get him some minutes, just get the rust off. I think you could trust him to play whenever anyway. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting at the point. I'd love to see Tyler Hero get his go there. I think that's the natural progression after his incredible rookie season. I think that's going to be the way forward. But he might just, go tried and tested here. He might just decide that Kendrick Nunn started so well last year. He might just go, I'll throw him back in. I don't think we'll see Goran Dragic anywhere near the starting lineup to start the season anyway, as I think we may see him shift in as it comes to postseason again. That was so obviously impressive last time. But for me, I'd like to see Tyler Hero get that chance. I think that's a pretty exciting lineup. If you had Tyler, Duncan, Jimmy, I'm going to say it, KZ, and then Bam. I think that's a pretty youthful, talented, deadly lineup there. So we'll see. I don't think we'll see KZ. I think it's probably going to be more tried and tested with Mo Harkless, or he might shift over Bam and put Myers Leonard back in at the 5 again. Either way, there is a lot of options for the Heat. So we will round up with our sort of predictions for this season. So I'm going to ask you each who you believe is going to be the Heat's MVP, the Heat's top scorer, and the Heat's most improved player. We're going to do those 3. Darren, first of all, who do you think is going to be our top scorer this year?
It's a difficult one, really. I've had a good think about this one. I think on any given night, we have got people who can light it up. Tyler's done it. Obviously, Duncan's done it. But it's going to come down to, who's the main man, and that's Jimmy. I think Bam will tear it up on the stat line all across the board. I think his numbers will go up, points, rebounds, assists. But I see Jimmy being the one who's going to be the average top scorer. Like I say, I think we'll see explosions from Tyler, Duncan, Goran as well. I think he'll have big games. But yeah, I think Jimmy, you've got to say, he's our main man, he's our go-to. And when it's on the line, that's where the ball's going.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most obvious answer is going to be Jimmy. Even though he doesn't need the ball, he doesn't look for points, he has no interest in whether he's top scorer or bottom scorer. I think just offensively, the fact that he gets to the line so much, that's obviously a pretty fair choice. So keeping it with you then, our MVP, our most valuable player this year.
Bam. I think Bam, again, with the contract that he signed, I don't see the pressure getting to him. I think it will only aid and excel him as a player. I see him having, like I said, I think his numbers will go up across the board. And he's a matchup nightmare, I think, for other teams. When they're looking to guard us, I think he does a little bit of everything. His mid-range, he's getting better. So you have to guard him there. I think I've heard him mention about becoming, a 3-point, say specialist, but adding that to his game. So yeah, if he has that, I think he becomes the X factor for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's again a very obvious answer. Yeah, Bam's going to do big things again this year. I'm sure points approved to make sure he well and truly justifies that max contract. So lastly, this is quite difficult, I think, because how do you improve when so many players were so good to start with? So this might be a bit tricky, but who's your MIP this year for the Heat?
Well, I think KZ's definitely thrown himself in the hat a little bit. in terms of, but again, will it be more of a breakout year for him?
Yeah.
I thought about Kendrick Nunn a little bit, just purely he had that hot start, and then it sort of, he had an injury, and then he was out of the rotation a little bit in the playoffs. But again, he was so good. So, for that opening part of the season. And again, if you look around the roster, it's a difficult one. I'm probably more inclined to say Kendrick Nunn, just because I think he will get more minutes. I like his work ethic, and I think he'll force his way into the reckoning.
Yeah, and he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. He started off so well, and then he got written off for a little bit of form, definitely, but more sort of health concerns. Let's not forget he contracted COVID, so people don't get over that immediately. People seem to forget that. So I think that's a good shout, Kendrick Nunn. Okay, good stuff, Darren. So Sam, same questions to you. Let's start off with our top scorer.
I pretty much agree with Darren across the board. I've got top scorer Jimmy Butler.
Yep. Mostly
because he's the one player on the team that's likely to give us those big numbers consistently.
Yep.
In terms of the MVP, I'm with Bam. His contract plays into it as well. And just looking at how he played in the playoffs, particularly in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm excited to see what he brings this season. I'm expecting a improvement in his scoring. His defense is going to be on point as usual. So I think he's going to be the focal point of the team in terms of performance this season. Most improved, I'm going to go with KZ, because we didn't really see much of him last season. So
KZ season.
He's really got pretty much nothing to build up on. So it's like a no-brainer in terms of most improved. But I'm also going to keep an eye on Tyler Hero as well, because that sophomore season, let's see what he does with it. I think he's got a good chance at just breaking out.
No, absolutely spot on, Lee. So we've got Darren and Sam both pretty much matched up. Sam just opted maybe for KZ on the MIP front. What are we saying for you, top scorer?
Yeah, I had Jimmy written down as top scorer as well. I just think, like you say, when it comes to a big moment, where the ball's going, the guy they trust. I actually had Jimmy down as MVP of the team as well, because I think it sounds strange, but I think he settles into Heat life even more in year two. I think year one was eye-opening for him, that, hang on, these guys are on the same page. That they want to do what I want to do. They want to be in the gym early. And I think this year he really settles into that, just takes it to an even to a next level. I think there's still more to come from Jimmy.
Scary thought.
Yeah, I know. I know. I just think it was eye-opening for him. I think it's the first time he's felt comfortable, and I think he's just going to see, that's not a one-year thing. This is the way this team is.
That's awesome. Good. Right. So then we've got most improved.
Oh, most improved. Funnily enough, I actually went the same way. I think Tyler Hero might actually have another level to go to, but I put in my notes that I think Kendrick Nunn is probably going to be looking to kind of rectify a little bit the way that season finished. Finish on a bit of a sour note for him. Not necessarily through fault of his own. I think he's trying hard enough. I think, like you say, COVID's not easy to get over. And I think, he's going to have a chance here to show that the start of the season wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because people just seem to have forgotten how incredible Kendrick Nunn was. At the beginning of that season, he was averaging about 28 points or something stupid for the first month. And then, form did dip a little bit. And then people just seem to completely write off the fact that he contracted the virus. So did Bam. And people, they don't all deal with that differently. Or the same, sorry. Everyone deals with it differently. So he's become almost like the forgotten man, which is quite sad. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the second year for Kendrick Nunn comes, because on his day, he's an offensive weapon for this team. I'm going to agree with, I think, most of you that said Bam at MVP. I think that, as I've already said, been paid. I think he's going to add to his game. He's already come out and said, look, I'm not now taking it easy because I've been paid. I'm now going to prove why I'm worth the money. So I think we're going to see big things from Bam. MVP candidate is for the Heat. is definite for me. I'm going to go for the same player for both top scorer and MIP, and that is Tyler Herro. So there's a bit of a shake. There's a bit of a hot take from me. I'm going with Tyler. I think that all of it depends on if he starts games, and I actually believe he's going to start. I think he's going to be. He played this sort of transitional, fluid style of basketball. It doesn't really matter who's at the one, etc. I think we're going to stick him in to start the season. And I've already said on multiple podcasts that I am looking forward to nothing more this year than sophomore Tyler Herro. And I think he's going to ball. The guy is just complete confidence wired all the way through him. And I think that if he gets in his groove early, he's going to just go from strength to strength. I think we're going to see an incredible season. So I'm going to put him as our top scorer. That is a bit of a hot take. But I'm also think that not only is he going to be Miami's MIP, he's going to be the league MIP. So you've heard it here. Get your bets on. Most improved player for the NBA is going to be Tyler Herro. Ready for that backlash. Right, okay, that will wrap it up, guys. Brilliant to have you all on for the first episode. Let's just quickly go around and find everybody where they can find you on Twitter. So, Darren, where can everyone get you, mate?
At coach_Carts.
Awesome. Sam?
It's at Sam Okwara, SAMOKWARA.
Lovely. And Lee?
Mine's just Lee at Lee Top Landing.
Brilliant. Okay, that's fantastic. Brilliant to have you all on. We will hopefully be back. Actually, we won't do one next week because it's all a bit funny around Christmas, etc. We'll catch up with everybody in the new year when everybody's out of whatever tier we're in, maybe or maybe not. Who knows? God knows what's happening at the moment in this country. But we'll get the celebrations as such out of the way, and then we'll come back to hopefully an impressive start to the season for the Miami Heat. We'll talk to you soon, guys.
You've been listening to Heating Up the UK.
Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts
to ensure you never miss a show.
Also, go give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by finding our page at the Miami Heat UK.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel, Miami Heat UK TV, for our latest shows and fun content.
That's your Miami Heat from across the pond covered. Thanks for listening.